We're live from the show floor for INTERBIKE TV, and we're with a cycling luminary. This is Gary Fisher. Gary, welcome.
Thank you so much. Here we are in Vegas one more time. Why do we come here? It's the bike freaks.
That may be true. And you, of course, remember when we used to go to Anaheim as well.
Oh, yeah, and I remember even Long Beach before that in Anaheim.
Yeah.
And those shows are so small, you could see every bike in like an hour. You could talk to everyone there in 3 hours. The industry was tiny.
Yeah.
And nowadays, there's so many good people bringing new ideas to the table, and there's a bike for everyone now. There are all kinds of bikes these days.
Yeah, I was at the outdoor demo yesterday, and I was looking at cross bikes and single speeds and fixies and commuters and 29ers. I mean, there's everything.
Yeah, there's no one way that's best. There's a way that's best for you, and there's a way that we can cure your cycling issue, your need, whatever that be.
So I got to ask, because you could really have your pick of anything. How many different bikes do you ride in, say, a 2-week period?
I ride about 6 bikes, 6 favorites, and it's like I've got a town bike that's an elegant old black bike. I've got a town bike that I call my sports car because it's a quick little bike to get around town, with pretty skinny tires and everything. I've got a cargo bike to do all my shopping in town and bring the big stuff home. And then I've got a road bike, and then I've got a cross bike, and then I've got a hardtail mountain bike and a full squisher mountain bike. And that's a pretty fundamental collection,
Now, considering, say, the genesis of mountain biking and what bikes looked like then, and now we're looking at a lot of single-speed mountain bikes as well, what do you think of that trend?
Well, the single speed, it's, back to this classic thing of simplicity, and they're insanely cheap, and it is a issue, people, they wear out their geared bikes too quickly, and I complain to our great suppliers and say, you guys, you're just like looking at the example of a racer that has a mechanic, and will you please go pay attention to these guys that have abandoned their gearing and taken on a single speed and see if you can make things more robust. And I think that's a coming trend. We have, the types of bikes that are true rocket science. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I've shown some of our latest frame, creations to a friend of mine that works at NASA, and he says, I don't think we make anything this nice here. And you think about it, the bikes that are being made these days, they're made in a way of an object made by NASA or Formula One. And you cannot own those objects, but you can own a really cool bike. So we got that end of the thing where you've got this absolute specialty piece that you can prepare for the very, an event, a single event, and prepare quite correctly. And the opposite end of that is a bike that will do just about anything you need to do, and it'll do it all the time, every day, day after day, and that becomes more like what our car is. You just put in the key and you go. I got to go somewhere. Grab my bike, gone. That whole style too. And those things, like I had a friend that owns a bike shop, and he showed me, this is pride and joy that he brought in, had imported again from overseas. It was a tire pressure gauge. Now, what was the attraction? No batteries, right? Back to that simplistic part. On the other hand, we got the ultimate battery bike now, and the things are going off in Europe like crazy, and this is the electric assist bikes. And those bikes are truly incredible, and that they're absolutely quiet, that you can pick one up and take it upstairs or lift it onto the rack, and the thing is a great equalizer. You get somebody out there that isn't quite as fast as you are, they get on that electric bike and they're there. You get like a kid that their parents, they live at the top of a hill, and everything. The kid has no excuses. It's freeing up mom. We've got politicians now that are riding these bikes. Like in San Francisco, many of the supervisors on the board of supervisors are riding electric assist bikes, and they are in love with them because they say, this is absolutely bar none the fastest way for me to get around town, and I don't show up a sweat ball when I have to arrive in my suit and tie. So we are offering solutions. And indeed, this industry makes the world's most efficient vehicles.
Great point. And at Eurobike this year, and you were there in spades, we read your tweets nonstop from Eurobike, and one of the trends this year really was electric bikes. Yeah. And I'm wondering, as much as it seems to have caught on in Europe, when do you think it's really going to catch fire here?
I think people are, they're gearing up like crazy. I mean, you see guys like Stork making an electric bike. You see we'll make, 10 different models next year, the Trek family and everything. And you see, Ducati was out there with, 3 versions. Ducati, and they say, hey, don't take a photo. So I immediately Twittered it,
But, that brings up a good question. There's a lot of people who say an electric bike is really just an electric motorcycle, like an electric car. What do you say to that?
Well, there is quite a difference. It is not an electric motorcycle, and if you use an electric assist bike. And these are the bikes that, well, guess what? You still have to pedal. And these bikes now, they become absolutely silent as well, So, I mean, I ride one around the city of San Francisco, and people are not aware I'm riding an electric bike very often. And, of course, they're capped out at around 20 miles an hour. But we as an industry are going to define it, and we need to, that's one of the reasons I'm working with the politicians, is because, I want them to really understand what they're legislating for or against. And, we have to use some wisdom here. I mean, we can't have, 35, 40 mile an hour bikes, so to speak, speeding around on our bikeways. It's just not going to mix. So we have to look at what's going to be reasonable with these things and work with these things.
That's a great point. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, when we think about the racing side of things, what sorts of changes have you seen in racing? I remember 20 years ago, when the men were incredibly well followed, well paid. The women not so much. Now we're seeing women's cycling magazines. What do you see as far as the changes in racing?
Well, there's some fundamental changes, but the women's side, that still has a long ways to go. I mean, there's been a tremendous amount of, inequity, so to speak, and the prize lists, the salaries, all that sort of thing. Women are very interesting to watch riding a bike, and the and that whole genre has really come up, and it's got a long ways to go. It's come a long ways, still got a long ways to go, but we're out supporting it. We've always sponsored women racers, and we always will.
Lastly, one of the things that I think you're known for is being a visionary. We've talked a little bit about some technology and about electric assist bikes. Look 10 years into the future. What does the bicycle of 2019 look like?
Well, the bike is extremely fashionable. It looks cool. It's something that lasts a long time, and it's super light, and it just functions the way you want it. And I see electronics, more of a role of electronics. I see that because you just take like the fixie crowd, those kids. Fixie kids. One thing they do that I really appreciate, they appreciate the masters of the old Japanese, the stuff the guys that build the stuff for the Kirin racing. Stuff that it's not the lightest, it's not the stiffest, but man, it never breaks. And there's a whole group of young kids now in the United States and in Europe that they worship that sort of metallurgy, so to speak. And and I think this country in particular, the United States, people do not appreciate a well-made piece. They just look at it and they take it for a surface value. Well, now their kids really understanding what goes into this product, what it takes to make it function and last a long time. Real appreciators that are going to make these companies. Those companies are back online again. Producing a lot of product, and it's really heartening to see people that do a good job are being paid for it.
Gary Fisher, it's always good to talk to you. It's good to see you. Thank you for being a positive force in the world of cycling.
Thank you. My pleasure.
This is David from the Fredcast. We're live from the show for INTERBIKE TV.